I got one more over here. Listen.
Thank you, sir.
Everybody ready?
Ready.
Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining us. I wanted to address an incident that happened last night. I mean, look, this has been an especially contentious election cycle. I think everybody can attest to that. I think everybody, media, voters, elected officials, candidates, would all just rather this whole thing end as soon as possible. And with that being said, we want to make sure that everybody's as safe as possible during the course of this election cycle. We've had several incidents to speak of. Nothing major. As you know, the sheriff's office is tasked with ensuring the safety and security of our elections, and it has been just that. We've had some incidents involving false alarms, swatting type, at least one swatting type call where a fake call was put in to elicit a police response, and of course once we arrived there was nothing there. We've had incidents where people show up thinking that the polls close later than they do and being upset with the election workers when they're not allowed to vote because they showed up after hours. We've had several instances where people show up wearing inappropriate clothing. In other words, clothing that in these instances that I was speaking of, and in this instance from last night, wearing clothing supporting a political candidate, which that's electioneering. And it's certainly something that you're not supposed to do. It's pretty clear in the literature that we give out to our deputies in enforcing the rules at polling sites, and it's common knowledge that's put out. We have one document here by the Texas Secretary of State, another one from the Bexar County elections, and in both it lays out that electioneering is strictly prohibited. Well, last night we had an instance where it got ugly. Now, thankfully, there was nothing life-threatening about what occurred, but it was still an ugly incident that I can't think of anything like this happening during my time here as sheriff, and I certainly hope to never see it again. But from the information that we have at this point is that last night at about 6:30, almost 6:30 on the west side of town, at one of the polling sites, a couple entered the polling place, and the man of the couple was wearing a hat that supported a political candidate. He was advised by the early voting clerk that he was not allowed to wear that hat while voting, because it goes against the laws of electioneering. The man complied. It's my understanding that the man complied at that point. He took the hat off. I'm not sure what he did, if he hid it from view or whatever, but he did take it off. He did comply and voted. On his way out of the polling site, though, it appears that he put the hat back on and while still in the building. The early voting clerk then informed him that was unacceptable and then began to escort the person out. As they were approaching the doors to exit the facility, there's a vestibule, a vestibule, and then another door leading to the outside. As they approached that door, it looks like they're going past a magnetometer that's there. The suspect appeared to throw an arm back toward the victim. The victim was, I couldn't tell from what I saw if it connected. But then the victim seemed to push off of the suspect at that point. The suspect then turned and threw several punches right at the face of the victim. Now, the suspect in this case is a man in his early 60s, larger man, probably about, I'd say close to 6 foot tall, if I'm estimating based upon what I saw, 240, 250, not a small man. The victim in the case is an elderly man, 69 years of age, doing his job. He's an early voting clerk. Now, the fact that this assault occurred in a polling site within the city, the sheriff's office responded because it's an election related call for service. We responded. We took the report from the victim at that point, and then armed with the information that we had, we were able to track down the suspect to a residence. When we went to the residence, when deputies were out in front, My understanding is that the suspect came out of the residence and identified himself to the deputies as, I'm the person you're looking for. So the deputies then at that point brought the suspect downtown. He was questioned, and then he ended up being booked for injury to an elderly person, which is a felony charge. At the last check, that suspect is in the Bexar County Jail at the South Tower here, the building behind me. The victim, no worse for wear other than some marks to his face, but again, thankfully non-life-threatening injuries. Everybody's going to survive this. But I'm just using this as an opportunity to try to bring down the tone of what's going on out there. Look, nothing here is worth getting hurt for, going to jail for. This election's going to happen one way or another. In any particular race, one side's going to win, one side's going to lose. That's just the nature of things. But there's no sense picking up a criminal case, picking up a criminal history, or injuring or even killing somebody in the name of politics. It just doesn't make any sense. And so we're asking everybody to please, tone down the violence. It's just not something, there's no room for violence when it comes to the political realm. We just can't tolerate it. We can't allow it to happen. And so I'm just using this as an opportunity to remind everybody that we've got to cool things down a bit and not resort to that sort of thing, whether we agree with somebody or not, whether we disagree with somebody or not, whether they're wearing something from an opposing party. It's just not worth the exchange of words, the exchange of a dirty look, the exchange of hand gestures, or in an extreme example like this, exchange of blows. We just can't allow it to happen. Esta tarde nosotros estamos dando información tocante un arresto que pasó ayer después de un incidente en una oficina de votaciones. Aproximadamente a las 6:30 nosotros recibimos una llamada por un reporte de un hombre, un empleado de las elecciones que estaba allí. Él reporta que una pareja, un hombre y una mujer, entraron a votar. El hombre de la pareja tenía puesto una cachucha de un candidato en la elección. La víctima le dijo, mira, no puede tener esa cachucha puesta mientras que esté votando. El sospechoso sí cumplió con eso, se quitó la cachucha, votó, y luego ya cuando se iban, el sospechoso otra vez se puso la cachucha. Entonces la víctima, el empleado, empezó a llevarlo para afuera de la oficina sin tocarlo. Ya cuando iban de salida, se ve en el video que el sospechoso voltea, como que le avienta como que le intentó pegarle a la víctima. La víctima lo empujó y luego ya de ahí el sospechoso volteó y le pegó 2 veces, cuando menos 2, posiblemente 3 veces al hombre en la cara. El hombre la víctima es hombre anciano, tiene 69 años de edad y solamente estaba haciendo su trabajo él. El sospechoso es hombre grande, aproximadamente 240, 250 libras. Tiene él 63 años de edad, me parece, y él se fue de la oficina. Ya cuando nos hablaron nosotros, nuestros oficiales tomaron reporte, lograron identificar al sospechoso y luego de allí fueron para una casa. Ya tocaron la puerta, el sospechoso salió de la casa, como que se rindió, les dijo que él sabía por qué estaban allí y que él era el sospechoso que ellos buscaban. Vino para acá con nuestros oficiales, hablaron con él y ya después de eso lo arrestaron por asaltar el anciano. De allí el hombre, no sé si ahorita, pero pienso que sigue aquí en la cárcel y ahorita está esperando ver un juez. Nomás le quiero recordar al público que por favor no hay para qué asaltar a alguien, hablar con alguien, insultar a alguien solamente por una elección. En cada elección un partido pierde, el otro partido gana, pero no hay para qué asaltar a alguien, tomar chances de matar a alguien o herir a alguien, y también no tomar chances de que una vaya a enfrentarse con cargos criminales. Entonces queremos que todo el público que se calmen y que por favor no siga esto, porque no hay lugar para violencia en las campañas políticas.
Is there a difference charged for assaulting an election worker?
Well, that's what we're looking at now. In researching the topic, these poll workers have a lot of authority. In some instances, they've even got authority that's on parallel with a district court judge. That's a lot of authority, and so certainly that's something to look at. But aside from that, this is just a man doing his job. He's there performing a service for the citizens of Bexar County, and regardless of what the charge ends up being, there's just no sense in assaulting somebody simply for doing their job.
Are you all, I mean, this individual was wearing a hat in support of former President Trump. Are you and your deputies expecting increased violence on Election Day by supporters of former President Trump?
Well, we're hoping that nobody from either party, exhibits any sort of violence. Obviously, we're there to keep the peace. We're prepared to confront any violence, but we just assume that it not occur. That's why we're holding this conference to just remind everybody, look, there's nothing that's happening here is worth going to jail over. Nothing that's happening here in this political cycle is worth going to jail over, or sending somebody to the hospital, God forbid, or killing somebody. It's just not worth it. And so again, I would expect members of both parties and candidates from both parties to conduct themselves professionally. As we all know, this is just politics, and there's nothing here that necessitates getting angry, or, well, I guess you can get angry if you want to, but there's no sense in hurling insults, or demeaning anybody else, or resorting to violence toward anybody else.
Jackie said that there was going to be a peace officer at that location. Are there going to be other officers at other locations at this time?
Well, so we've on every single day we've got deputies that are whose sole purpose it is to maintain security for our elections. I've got deputies all over the place right now. Now, with that being said, we have to walk a fine line as well, because we've got to be close to the point where we're there for security purposes, but we also can't give the impression that we're there to hover or try to intimidate anybody. And there's a fine line that we're asking our first responders to walk to make sure that we're balancing out everybody's ability to vote, but to do so safely and securely. So that's what we're doing. We're just making sure. So to answer your question, yes, we will absolutely have deputies positioned throughout the county to make sure that there's security. If Ms. Callanan would like us to have folks closer to a certain location, we can certainly do that. But again, we don't want to give the impression that we're there to try to intimidate anybody. That's the last thing we want.
Adding who specifically will be assigned to that site, the sheriff's deputy?
Well, sheriff's deputies are who I'm in charge of. So I mean, I can tell you, if Ms. Callanan were to call me and ask me to send her an officer anywhere, all I can send her is a deputy. From my perspective, I have not received that request from Jackie asking for a deputy to be positioned anywhere. But certainly, I'd have to look at, again, that making sure that we're there to provide, or nearby to provide security, but we also don't want to hover or be intimidating.
Are you adding more deputies to more locations?
No, I mean, at present, I think we've got it covered. We've got several dozen deputies on a daily basis whose sole purpose it is they're not responding to calls for service. They're remaining free to be proactive, or to be able to respond to polling sites. So I don't anticipate adding a whole bunch of people. Again, we're trying to calm the situation down. Now, if things appear to be escalating, or if we do receive some intelligence from our intelligence side of the house that we need to step things up, then we absolutely will. But at present, I think this was an isolated incident. I'm hoping that people will get the point that, having seen what happened to this man after he assaulted one of the clerks, maybe somebody thinks twice about doing something like this.
I have to ask, in 2020, Judge Wolf, you said that he was assaulted, then the video came out, and then that charge got downgraded and ultimately dropped. Do you think that same thing is going to happen to this case, or are you sure?
Well, nothing's ever certain in law enforcement. All we can go is based off what we saw on the video. Last night, we didn't have the benefit of the video. We had somebody from another agency watching the video and explaining to us what had happened, and then we were able to hear from the victim and the suspect exactly what happened. So there's never any definites. And once we make the arrest and present the evidence, it's really out of our hands.
Have you seen the video yourself?
I've seen it. Now, I mean, to me, it certainly the elements of the offense of injury to an elderly person are present. Barring any unforeseen changes in the law or anything, any new evidence that might come forward, I can't speak to what the prosecution might do to this case once it arrives over there.
So is the suspect facing charges or no?
He is facing charges.
What
Yes, injury to an elderly person.
So what kind of punishment does that carry?
It is a felony. It's a third-degree felony, so I'd have to get you the.
And then, Sheriff, can you go back and tell us like what exactly happened? So he was wearing a MAGA hat or a Trump hat, or what exactly
Well,
was he wearing?
he was wearing a hat in support of a certain candidate. The law clearly states you can't support any certain candidate when you're inside of a polling site. That's called electioneering. And so the clerk did as he was supposed to do. He instructed him that you can't wear that here. Thankfully, in this instance, the suspect complied. He took off the hat. I don't know what he did with it. I don't have that information. There's not a camera trained on where he was when he voted, so that's why I can't tell you what he did when he had it. The only camera that we see is after they're done voting, he's walking out, he's wearing the hat again. And at that point, the suspect, the victim, went to follow the suspect out. As he's allowed to do, he's an early voting clerk, I should say. At that point, it appears that the suspect threw an elbow or an arm back toward the victim. I can't tell to what extent a connection was made, but the victim seemed to push off. The suspect then turned toward the victim and punched him at least 2, possibly 3 times right in the face. And then they separated, and the suspect left the location. The victim then came back in, and the authorities were called.
And what's the relationship between the suspect and the woman he was with at the poll?
I believe they're husband and wife.
Does the suspect have a criminal history?
I don't have information on criminal history. I know that he's got a SID number in our system, but I don't know criminal history.
But can you confirm like which candidate the hat was supporting or which party the hat was supporting?
I'd just as soon stay away from that at this point, Joey, but I can tell you it was for one of the candidates. It's in the report. You're more than free to.
Why that reticence? I mean, given that the affidavit clearly states that this is a supporter of former President Donald Trump,
Sure.
We've seen nationwide that supporters of the former president have been inciting violence against election workers.
Well, again,
why that reticence to actually call it
I'm
out?
trying to calm the mood down a bit. You're free to read the report if you'd like to. I'm not here to say one party was more correct or less correct than the other. I'm just saying what you're allowed to wear. You're not allowed to wear anything into the polling sites that supports one political campaign over another. Look, I'm on the ballot. I don't want any of my supporters walking into the polling sites with one of my T-shirts on. It's illegal, and they will be asked to leave, just like this gentleman was, clearly.
With all due respect, Sheriff, though, as the top law enforcement of the county and being the person who goes over details about this, why don't you want to say specifically?
I would just prefer not to, Joey. You're more than happy. We're going to hand you a copy of the report here, and you can report on it all you want. It's in the report. It's unredacted. You're free to have
The
it.
swatting incident you referenced, when did that take place this week?
The swatting incident, day before yesterday.
And what site was it against?
McCreatis. We received a call for some sort of a large disturbance. When we arrived, there was no such disturbance.
Are you able to track down who made that call? The follow-up charges?
I mean, I don't believe that we have yet, but absolutely, if we can find out who made that call, yeah, they're going to be facing charges, as they would with any sort of, political or not, any sort of swatting call that prompts a police response, puts the community at risk, it puts first responders at risk, and absolutely, you can face charges for that.
Well, I know you said you don't want to mention what the hat is. It's an affidavit that it is a Donald Trump
Sure.
hat supporting that. You said you're on the ballot, you're a Democrat. Aren't you worried that saying something might, I don't know, like give people a different impression
Of what?
of just, like, why would you say something about it? Like,
Well, look, I'm not looking to look, let's remove the political from this altogether, okay? What I have is a pretty large, able-bodied suspect that struck an elderly man in the face, causing injury. Remove that from a polling site and put it in any grocery store, movie theater, arcade, anywhere in the restaurant, anywhere in the county, anywhere in the city, and that's illegal any day of the week. So you can remove the political aspect from this, and it is still an assault of an elderly person that ended in the injury of that elderly person.
And you mentioned, sorry, you mentioned several incidents have occurred. How many so far this year?
Just anecdotally speaking, I'm 2 or 3 a day, and nothing to this magnitude. I can tell you that. In one instance that we know of, a gentleman was I believe that was at Lyons. Was confronted with the same thing. He was wearing a hat that he wasn't supposed to be wearing, or a shirt. I don't remember what it was. He was confronted. He asked to see proof. The deputies then showed him the document that shows where he's not. He complied at that point. He just wanted to see it in black and white, and so they did. And he complied, he voted, and he went about his way.
You mentioned a video about this incident. Will that video be released, and if so, when will it be?
At this point, we don't have any plans to release it, but certainly at some point in the future we might.
So when the video though was, where did the video come from? Was it the library?
The library.
So like security footage from the.
That's exactly what it was. Yes, sir.
Like the City of San Antonio Library, I'm guessing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What's the bond that the suspect is facing?
I don't think he's had a bond yet.
But he's at least right now he's still here.
I believe he's still here in
So
South
he
Town.
hasn't been arraigned on the charge.
I don't believe so.
And you said it's possible those charges could be upgraded if it is a crime to assault a poll worker.
Yes, when I just received my briefing, they said they were looking into does a clerk rise to that same level as an election judge? They're looking at that right now.
Do you know, was the poll worker back on the job today?
I don't know that. I imagine he's going to be pretty sore. So nobody could fault him for staying home today.
I think Jackie earlier said
He's back at work.
Hey,
That's
he
good.
just punched in the face, right? Like, or was it?
No, he's punched in the face.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so my understanding is he was treated there, but not taken to the hospital.
Yeah, I don't think it was anything that serious where he had to go to the hospital.
Can you share the age of the suspect? I know you said he's.
I think he's 63. The suspect is 63.
What's his race? Out of curiosity.
The white male. Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
Oh, let's grab your mic.
Oh, shoot. I think theft of a media microphone is also a crime.
I was like, we can listen to you.
I don't know whose is whose, guys. I'm sorry. I have two in each back pocket. Here, I'll get it. Sure.